What's good, y'all? It's Noble. Today I'm gonna be breaking down 3 samples. Some are emotional rod wave type samples and others are more 4PF low baby, but they all have the emotional touch to them with guitars, pianos, vocals, and things like that. So yeah, without further ado, let's get straight into the video. Alright, so before I break this first sample down, this is what it sounds like. Crazy. So because this is a lab sample with my guy tntxd, I actually have 2 FLPs here. This first FLP is where I made the starter in, and the second one is where I added in all the parts that he added. So I started off with this free VST called Labs, and I went into the soft piano preset. Here's what the MIDI sounds like. From there, I copied that MIDI over into another instance of Labs, and I basically just got rid of the high notes. And so that way there's a simple section and a complicated section for the piano, and this is what the simple section sounds like. From there, I went back into Labs and found this preset called Bass Guitar Warm Bass Amp, and this is what the MIDI sounds like with the piano. So the first thing I did in this second FLP was pick out my favorite parts that Botry had added. These are the 2 that I went with. And when I put this with the starter, this is what it sounded like. So that was hard, but I thought it needed a little bit of a transition. So what I did was put a bunch of reverb on the first guitar, render it out, and reverse it. And this is what I got out of doing that. So after that, I loaded up Session Strings Pro 2 in Contact, and I just played this one note here. From there, I rendered it out and added a volume automation to kind of fit with the guitar better. Then to transition between the first and second section, I added this transition from me and Cabez's new sound kit called Nirvana. And then the last thing I added was these vocals from Arcade. They're really just adding a lot of ambience. And then for Master Effects, I got the same thing I always have, which is the melt ambience on Valhalla and the gentle modulation on Sketch Cassette with the flutter down. So when you put all that together, this is what the final sample sounds like. So the second sample I made with my boy Luke, and before I break it down, I'm gonna go ahead and play it. Crazy. So this is the original starter that Luke sent me. So the first thing I did here was load up the Scarby Rickenbacker bass from Contact, and I used the one called Palm Muted. Here's what the MIDI sounds like. So after adding the bass, I found this preset in Labs called Peel Guitar 2. This is what it sounded like when I rendered it out with no effects. And this is what it sounds like with effects. So for effects here, I have a couple reverbs, a light distortion, and then I just have the default preset on Crystallizer with the mix turned down. After that, I pulled up the soft piano in Labs and added these chords. So one of the last things I knew I wanted was vocals, so I had this pattern playing in Arcade.
I don't wanna, I don't wanna, I don't wanna,
And that was cool, but I wanted them to be a little bit slower to fit with the rest of the sample. So I just rendered it out and chose one of the chops to stretch, and this is what that sounded like. Here's what all that sounds like with the transition. For Master Effects, I'm using the same preset as the last sample. So yeah, after all that, this is what the final sample sounds like. Alright, so before I break this final sample down, this is what it sounds like. So for the piano, I'm using this preset in Keyscape called LA Custom C7 Grand Piano, and here's the MIDI that I played. All I'm using for effects is a default preset on Sketch Cassette. From here I loaded in this contact bank called Evolution Strawberry. Here's what the MIDI sounded like before I rendered it out. The main effect I'm using here is a Creamy Snowflakes preset on Guitar Rig 6 with the mix turned down, and then I also have a slight reverb. So once I had that, I rendered it out, pitched it down an octave, and added some automations on the reverb, and this is what I got. So the last thing I added was this vocal shot with some reverb and crystallizer, and I have an automation on the reverb to make it more noticeable at the end. And the only master effect I'm using here is the Mel Ambience on Valhalla. So yeah, after all those layers, this is what the final sample sounds like. That's going to be about it for the video, y'all. Hope you enjoyed. If you did, make sure to subscribe and also like the video. Comment down below what you want to see next. Make sure to go follow my Instagram at prod.noble. And also make sure to go cop my newest sound kit with Quebec called Nirvana. Link is the first in the description. And yeah, I'm going to go ahead and play a beat I made with one of these loops now. So I'm out of here. Peace.